Every morning, I would step onto my balcony and watch the birds flying past. At first, I never thought much about them. They were simply part of the morning scenery. But after seeing the same visitors repeatedly, I started recognizing them. Kookaburras would sit on the railing and quietly watch me. Pink parrots appeared nearby, while magpies often arrived together. By evening, the kookaburras would return, making the balcony feel full of life. But eventually, one bird caught my attention more than all the others. He was a bright red parrot who watched me from a eucalyptus tree. Every morning, he seemed to sit in almost exactly the same place, staring toward the balcony. He was obviously curious, but he was also cautious. For several days, he stayed at a distance, as if trying to decide whether I could be trusted. Then, one morning, he finally made his move. He flew across to the balcony and landed directly in front of the window. We looked at each other for a long moment. Then, suddenly, he jumped on my shoulder. I couldn't believe it. That tiny bird had chosen to come close. More importantly, he had chosen to trust me. I named him Rupert. From that day on, his visits became something I genuinely looked forward to. Rupert was brave, curious, and one of the funniest little birds I had ever met. What made him especially amusing was the way he moved around the balcony. Instead of constantly flying, Rupert often preferred to walk. He would slowly step along the railing, looking around as though he were inspecting everything. Sometimes he walked across the balcony and stopped to examine little objects along the way. It was almost like watching a tiny explorer discovering a new world. But Rupert wasn't the only parrot I became attached to. There was almost always another bird nearby. Her name was Greta. Greta was much more cautious than Rupert. She never came close enough to sit on my shoulder, and she preferred to watch from a comfortable distance. Still, she was almost always there. Rupert and Greta seemed completely inseparable. They would fly toward each other, gently touch their beaks, play for a moment, and then suddenly fly in opposite directions. Sometimes they disappeared into the trees together. Then, when I stepped onto the balcony, Rupert would often return, and Greta would usually follow soon after. Watching them together became one of the most peaceful parts of my mornings. Of course, Rupert didn't come every single day. There were mornings when I stepped outside and immediately looked toward the eucalyptus tree, hoping to see that familiar red bird. But sometimes the tree was empty. I would wonder where Rupert and Greta were and imagine them exploring somewhere beyond my view. I missed him, but I also understood something important. Rupert was wild. He had his own life, his own routine, and the freedom to go wherever he wanted. And whenever he eventually returned, it made his visits feel even more special. Sometimes I would hear a familiar sound before seeing him. I would look up and find Rupert sitting nearby, almost as if he had been waiting for me to notice him. Other days, he stayed only a few minutes before disappearing back into the trees. There were also days when he seemed completely comfortable staying around for much longer. Those quiet visits became little moments I started remembering long after he had flown away. Over time, I began paying more attention to all the birds around me. Each one had a different personality and a different routine. Some appeared only briefly, while others returned regularly. My balcony had slowly become a small meeting place for wildlife, and I realized how much I had been missing by simply rushing through my mornings. Nature doesn't always need to give us something spectacular. Sometimes beauty is simply a bird sitting quietly beside you. Sometimes it's two parrots playing together in the trees. And sometimes it's a wild animal deciding that you are safe enough to come closer. Rupert was never my pet. I never wanted to take away his freedom. He could leave whenever he wanted, and he could return whenever he chose. That was exactly what made our connection so meaningful. Rupert didn't come because he was forced to. He came because he wanted to. Every visit brought something small but special into my day. He made ordinary mornings brighter and reminded me to slow down and appreciate what was happening right in front of me. I feel incredibly lucky that a little red parrot chose to become part of my mornings. His visits may have seemed simple, but they changed the way I looked at nature.
Rupert taught me that friendship doesn't always require words. Sometimes it begins with curiosity, then comes trust, and eventually a small wild creature can become an unforgettable part of your life without ever truly belonging to you. Sometimes the smallest visitors leave the biggest memories, and for me, that visitor will always be Rupert. If Rupert's story touched your heart, please like the video, leave a comment, and subscribe for more touching and inspiring animal stories. And before bringing an exotic animal into your home, always learn about its specific needs and speak with experienced professionals. Proper research is essential for giving them the safe and healthy life they deserve.